Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Quick Fix. Today we're answering one of the questions from the Quick Fix Clinic, and that question is this. When I paint a cluster of berries or some small flowers and connect them to one main stem, it doesn't look natural and I have a hard time visualising how to make one main branch with small sub-branches stemming from it. Well, I have got a really lovely project for you in that case. This is really simple. I've got a size 2 brush and a size 4/10 for some detail. I've got alizarin crimson and I am using some fairly wet, dilute colour here. Okay, so I'm going to paint a little wet circle and I'm going to clean that brush off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint a little circle of water just overlapping the edge. I'm going to clean my brush right off once again. And I'm going to paint another circle of water, and I'm just stretching out the colour that I have. I'm going to keep doing this for a little while, and what I'm doing is I'm building up this cluster of berries, and what's happening is as the colour is sort of stretched through the various wet circles, it's creating a little cluster of berries that all look like they're catching the light at different levels. But I've now just picked up a bit more concentrated colour, and I am now going to paint a circle that just kisses the edge of those two there. And it's very important that we do leave these tiny bits of unpainted space between the berries to avoid just ending up with one big blob. If you want a bit more control, you could go down to a smaller brush. Something like 3/10 will still do very nicely if you're sort of struggling to get the finer points on the brush, but essentially we're just painting this lovely little cluster. Okay, and now I'm going to paint one or two just sort of out on their own, floating, seemingly floating. Now, although this is quite a concentrated colour, there still is quite a lot of water on my brush, because it's very important that there's still water involved in the mix of paint to allow for this little travel of colour from one of the circles to the next. So now I have a nice formation of floating circles and berries, and we're just going to let that dry for a little while, and as it dries we'll see all those lovely translucent colours just crisp up at the edges. Now, it was also mentioned little flowers in the post, so what I'm also going to add in here is the idea that some of these buds may have flowered into actual petals by now. So I'm now going to just paint in the same colour a few little 5-petaled flowers, just very small and simple, and we can even add in maybe a little bit of extra colour. the moment it's all looking a bit mysterious. But what I want to sort of emphasize is that if you can paint a lovely sort of floating cluster of things, and then the stem can join all of these things together, you end up with a lovely organic shape, rather than having a sort of stiff, stocky stem. Here we go, I'll have one more flower. Let it dry, and then add in the stem in the gaps. That's nicely dry now. Now I'm going to mix up a stem mix, and because we've got a pinky red, I'd like to have a bluey green. So I'm mixing up French ultramarine blue and sap green together there. And I'm just using my larger brush to mix it up and get it sort of fairly concentrate, but still with a nice bit of water. Now I'm going to use a nice little brush, 4/10, and let's begin. So I like to sort of find a way to begin my stem, and I'm going to fork the stem and then I'm going to start finding little links between my berries. Now I'm not going to worry about every single one joining up, but obviously I need to make sure these floating ones have little stems. And if you wanted, you could always have an extra little bit in there. But on the whole, you're just looking to join up the gaps. And then what will really make it come alive is a few little leaves. And if you want, you could always pop one that's sort of coming out of the top there. And there you have a lovely little cluster of berries, very simply done with a few little flowers too.